Good morning, people of the internet. You're listening to Debi Radio's 79.5 FM podcast, where we discuss the movie Grosse Pointe Blank 1 minute at a time. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dev.
And I'm the other co-host, Hugh, and on today's show we're going to be looking at minute 39 of the film, in which Terry leaves very sharply, Martin apologises to his buddy Paul, and, well, we'll take it from there.
And joining us today, as he has been all this week, David Brook of Blueprint Review and DCB Productions. Hello again, David.
Hello. Yes, back again. Excellent.
Yes. All right, we've gotten rid of the minutes that I struggle through, and we're back on, I think, some like grade A plot here. We've got, as Hugh was just mentioning between episodes, Terry recreating Grosse's exit from earlier in the film with some good peel out and burnt rubber. But with the addition of a little bit of a whoop from the siren, which was definitely going to amuse the residents of this neighborhood. They're going to appreciate screeching tires and sirens when it's not necessary. So I'm sure he'll face no repercussions for that one.
Oh dear, it just speaks. But literally, it's what he wants to be, right? Like that's Terry. I mean, I'm sure, as I said, I'm sure it's just an in-joke by the stunt drivers, to have Terry do exactly what Grosse did. But I also wonder if that's like, Terry would like to be Grosse. He doesn't actually want to have the restrictions of having to kowtow to, ordinary citizens who never grew up here, and Paul trying to sell things off. And the bit where Martin says, "So you authorized to use deadly force?" and he tries to beat around the bush and goes, "Yes," just like yes. And then Martin, that's the point where Martin's like, after a 2-week training course, and then you're like, that's it, he's out. Martin's out of that conversation, right? So like Terry doing this with the car is almost like a natural follow on. It's a very nice little touch.
And you feel like Terry would join the union, I think, the union, definitely.
Yes, he would.
Because it made life easier.
Would.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He wouldn't have any idea how a union works, but yeah, he would. That'd be great.
We get Martin apologizing to Paul for kind of fucking up the sale of the house, and Paul kind of coming clean about his role in the sale of Martin's mum's house, and we're also getting a message to Rudy.
Yes, I was going to mention
cranking up in this moment, which I think it just resets everything in like we're moving away from this like weird scene, and we're going back to the staple of the movie. We're back to that standard tone of the film, and I think the music scoring does that really nicely for us here.
I love the sound. I'm sure you've talked about this many times already, but the soundtrack for this film is so good. I'd kind of forgotten until I rewatched it for the podcast, and it's just so good. Just so many classic tunes in there. I'm a big Specials fan, so I'm definitely glad I came on this episode for that. Wonderful tune.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Specials, English beat. It's the Clash. It's a whole roster of incredible music. And
it's a British soundtrack.
I was going to say that. Yeah, it is quite a British soundtrack.
I get that's Cusack's preference. This is the stuff he loves, and it's the
taste.
Stuff that.
But it's Joe Strummer, right? Like, I mean, if Joe Strummer's involved, then he's going to call on what he knows, and that's very much the British scene with some Caribbean influence, right? Like, we do have Johnny Nash right at the start, and that's I mean, he was American, but most of his career, most of his fame, and certainly, the period that we're looking at in this film, it comes from being out in Jamaica.
But isn't I think that's the thing about all of this, is that I was saying in a previous episode that this scene here around the house sale, I found it ironic that post LA riots, the rent-a-cop is responding to a white guy in a black suit, right? And I thought there was a certain irony there socially, and the music kind of reinforces that, doesn't it? Because Cusack and his mates, this was their idea of rebellious music, where they were. This was the counterculture for them. even though over here it crossed over into to become the mainstream.
Yeah,
and it
I was
never
gonna
did
say-
it there.
Yeah, I was gonna say in a way it might be reaching a bit, but they kind of outside of music in a way as well. Like not necessarily just literally from other countries, but there's a bit of punk in there and things like that. And it's again considered outside the mainstream, which like Martin Blank, he's kind of stepped away from it all. This might be reaching to see. They're probably
No,
just
you're not.
because
You're
it's
not
cool,
reaching.
but
No,
Yeah.
you're not reaching it at all. We've been looking into this, and actually, this is the sort of stuff Cusack's talked about. I mean, funnily enough, it's a lot easier to find stuff on the soundtrack than it is other aspects of the film. A lot of music websites over the years and magazines have done features on it, and it is very much as you say. It is very much as you say, and I think that's incredibly interesting. To me, because I've been to America a few times, and I remember offending my boss one time when we were driving to a lunch at a restaurant. And this is in Houston. She's Greek. She was Greek. Well, she still is, obviously, but I don't work for her anymore. But she's Greek Italian from Texas. We're going to a Vietnamese restaurant, and she's playing the Verve in the car, and I'm like, huh. We're playing the Verve in Texas. This is weird. And she's like, oh, this is my college days. This is the sort of stuff I listened to. And my brain was ticking over trying to remember what college rock was like at that time and trying to get my head around it. And I was like, well, if there's one thing that doesn't change over about 20-ish plus years in America, is that there's always this tension in their college rock between, which we kind of had over here for some of our university radio, where you have American indie bands and guitar-based sounds, and then you have a British sound, and it will be in contrast to that, but it always goes back and forth, right? They're either into their, for Cusack at the time, given that America still had at that time, it's a mix of metal and glam pop and like over-egged former 70s country-ish stuff like Fogelberg, and everything is very much either. There's not a lot of stuff that sounds like the area they're from. There's not a lot of stuff that's local to Chicago. A lot of the stuff that's about to explode from Chicago hasn't yet gone. We want Big Black and the other guys at this, not quite there yet. So I think it makes sense that his era, his generation looked to England, and they looked to punk, and they looked to everything that was linked to punk. But of course, that never ever really truly changes the American mainstream. It's like, or maybe I suppose, yeah.
I mean, I think there's still some bands that are notably missing from this soundtrack. If you're thinking about it purely in that context, you would still see some Pearl Jam, some Gin Blossoms. I think.
You mean for when this is made?
Well, for when they were graduating
Not
high
Pearl
school.
Jam. I mean, Singles is what, 93 as a film, which is the first time you see. Yeah, no, because this was my stuff when I was back then. I remember being into Sub Pop just before grunge hit.
Maybe off on both of those then.
Not by a lot, but I think Cusack's definitely trying to keep an 80s vibe going.
Yeah.
You're right. It's quite late 70s though, isn't it? I think it's more. That's what did surprise me though. Is it does feel like it's what point. They listen to in the film is before what 10 years. Well, 1987. It's all pre 1987, most of it.
That's a good point. You've got a really good point there, David. Yeah, so it's actually
Rudy,
stuff
that
like late
79 or something like that. I don't know, but so I think it's more John Cusack's real music that you listen to at that age.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah. So we've got this really interesting kind of. Wow, yeah,
a little bit of a retro vibe.
That's the Clash, isn't it? I'm getting the Clash and the Specials mixed up. But
no, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so it's not even. Yeah,
they're well off being 10 years before. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we have to just file that under the same issue as all of them not looking like the right age either for it. The music's wrong. The age is wrong.
Yeah. Although I realised, although I realised it said it was by the Specials, but I'm getting it totally mixed up. No, it's a Clash song, isn't it? Yeah.
There is also.
There is some specials in there.
There are some specials.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
It's not Golden Brown. It's. Oh, it's going to bug me now.
I'm going to look the soundtrack up now as well.
But yeah, I mean, it is also interesting that a film with this plot and this kind of style is the one Strummer is happy to work on. like he spent so long not letting anyone use the Clash for soundtrack work. He was just very adamant about it, and of course Cusack made a personal plea to him to be involved with this. At which point he was happy to come on board, get involved, do bits and pieces. But I always find it interesting that this is the film that tweaks his enthusiasm. I like it. Just like if you said to me, "Hey, what kind of film do you think Joe Strummer likes?" I would not have said the script to Grosse Pointe Blank. That would just not have been the thing I would have gone for. But I mean, the only thing he was in was oh God, wasn't he in that Alex Cox's famously disastrous spaghetti western that had the Pogues in it, Straight to Hell?
Isn't he in? Is he in Mystery Train as well? I think he's in Mystery Train.
Oh yeah, he's in Mystery Train. Yes, yeah, exactly. Do you see what I mean? He's all super indie stuff, right?
Hmm.
Whereas this fits very much more with the '90s post indie crime vibe. But I guess maybe that, hey, we benefit. I'm not complaining in the slightest. I'm just fascinated by the fact that this was his choice.
Ghost Town is the specials track that features in the film.
Arguably,
Pressure Drop as well, according to I've looked at the soundtrack.
Yeah. I do feel like Ghost Town is just it's aged so well. It's just
it's
still relevant, still accurate, still about
depressingly so. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
But it's funny though, right? Because a lot of my friends over here that have listened to Ghost Town and like the song and sing along to it totally miss the subtext of that.
Really?
I feel like the context of that is a very specifically British context.
Yeah, true.
Right. It could be applied to Detroit. I think Detroit is a good application of that song.
Yeah.
But it's not universal to other parts of America in the same way. Right. That decimation of industry in huge swathes of the UK happened differently in the US, and it doesn't resonate as a political message in the way it still does as a piece of music, I feel.
Agreed 100%. So in this once Terry's gone, and you were saying in a previous minute, Dev, that you felt uncomfortable the way, and I think David, you mentioned this as well, this idea of Paul basically laying the blame for the failure to close the deal completely on Terry. What I like in this minute is how Martin once Terry's gone, Martin's happy to try and go, I'm sorry, I think I didn't help, kind of thing. Like he realizes that his attempt at honesty didn't help either. He fesses up, and it's Paul who's kind of like, okay, my friend has only just got back into town. What do I do here? There's a look on his face like he wants to explode at him, and he doesn't.
I'm not sure I agree. I feel like, especially with the way that he reacts as Terry peels out with the like, wow, it's in Paul's mind, all of this is entirely Terry's fault. Like Martin is blameless. He's not even really hearing the apology. It's just he's still like frustrated with Terry in his head, and then he's just like, shake it off, come clean about selling the house and try to get a family in there, but Ultimate made the best offer.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That's where we're heading, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, fair point.
Yeah, and that's an interesting.
Get mad at him, can he?
No, and that's the thing.
Because he
realizes
it.
That relationship is so asymmetric that he just isn't capable of it, and I think we're going to be able to reinforce that the tail end of this minute as they drive by Debbie's house, right? But the Ultimate piece is kind of an interesting one. It's just like this weird throwaway line that I can't imagine if that had really, like, if that had played out in reality, you'd ever be able to just like pass it off in that way.
Yeah, especially because I guess it's probably done because of this, but because it made quite a big deal out of it earlier on, and I guess you don't want to keep labouring it in the film, but at the same time, because they make a big deal out of it early on, you're right, it's weird how it's thrown away suddenly in that line. But yeah, I don't know,
and I think it works just because it's bringing that tone back to a lighter level again, right? Like,
true. Yeah,
after the scene, it helps just break things and move the tension, like release the tension and get us back on track with the film.
Yeah.
But it almost, it didn't need to be him that there was the realtor involved, right?
No.
You know.
True.
And then we kind of turn the corner and creep up on Debbie's house, and this is an interesting moment for me, because this is like, Paul is obviously the broker for this sale, and he's like, this is the crown jewel in his portfolio at the moment, right? Like, this is one of the premier houses in Grosse Pointe. It's a huge house on like sizable grounds, like its own kind of walled off fencing. And he's showing off, right, to Martin, like, this is the big shot I am now, is like, I'm involved in selling this house. And Martin doesn't see any of that. He's just like, it's Debbie's house. And that pitch of Paul to be like, you know, to the guy that he admires, like, I'm the big shot now, just misses its mark completely.
Yeah, but like, it just adds insult to injury, doesn't it? Right? He's just told him, "Oh yeah, I'm the one who sold your house."
Yeah,
you know. Now I'm selling her house, and
Yeah.
you just, you know, at this point, it's just like, what's going on? And then, of course, you know, yeah, that's just. I'm surprised Martin didn't blow up even more at that point, but I guess by this point he's getting used to it.
Yeah, give it in.
Yeah,
I mean,
because his response, you know, oh, thanks for profiting off my childhood. It's such a, you know, like, clearly he's just gone, oh, great, I got to live with this now.
One thing we didn't mention just is in that I've gone put to the wrong thing. There's quite a random, like, well, not totally random, but as they head off to the car, you get quite a nice kind of crane shot. It's got a bit of an old-fashioned feel about it, an old Hollywood crane shot, especially with that lamppost in the middle, gives it a I don't know, Singing in the Rain sort of vibe or something. I find that shot quite unusual. I mean, it's not a weird shot, but it feels slightly odd in the film. It's, as I say, it's got a bit of an old classic Hollywood feel to it.
Yeah, it's one of those few moments where you can actually.
It's like, usually you get a crane on a big grand moment. They're just getting in a car to go somewhere. It's not really.
Yeah.
It's a bit odd.
It reminds me of 10 Things I Hate About You. 10 Things I Hate About You does it in a couple of places, either going in or coming out, like for the transitions. But they're like, as you say, like they're big moments, right? It's the beginning of the film, the end of the film, and here it's just randomly inserted, you know.
And it's not even really, I mean, it kind of is the end of a scene, but it leads, this next bit is leading directly into each other. They're still in the car, they're still having this conversation, so it doesn't even feel like the end of a scene. So it is a bit odd, that shot. I mean, it's yeah, I do appreciate a nice crane shot, but it's an odd place to put it. A really odd place to put it.
I do wonder if that's how they decided to deal, because for me, look, that when I came back across it for our recording, I was just kind of thinking to myself, that pulling back because it's on the very moment where Paul's admitting to what he's done in relation to the Ultimate. I kind of wonder if that's the whole point, because we can't see Martin's face.
So maybe it was tacked on that line, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
you mean for the reaction? Sorry,
like
making it a smaller deal.
It's not. It should be a really big deal, but actually we're pulling back from it because so's he. He's just because the fact that the scene ends specifically after he says thanks for profiting off my childhood. Like, okay, so he's not going to lose his temper. He's not going to attack him. He's not going to hurt him. He's not going to do any of the things that we think he might. But and that's him growing. That's him learning, right? That's him. You know. Going, okay, fine. You know, what can I change? What can I not change? And also recognizing his friend, because, like, guess what he lacks loads in this film up until this point is actual friends.
Yeah, and all through this, up to this point, we've got Paul talking about what he does and what he's been up to. Paul still doesn't know what Martin does for a living. He's about to find out, but at this point, he has no idea. He doesn't have that sense of fear, right? He's had this opportunity that most other characters that find out don't, of you know, getting to know what Martin's like nowadays, and that he's not so different to what he was like in high school before there's this like drop of like, and this is what I do for a living now.
Absolutely. But But yeah, it is. But yeah, then it just the fact, and I think it's just then reinforced by the whole business of prime property being Debbie's house. Although the irony of saying, hey, you should have a look at this. I've got a property you might be interested in. It's like, why exactly? You want to buy it so you own where Debbie lives? Is he just trying to get him to talk about Debbie? I don't know. I find it. Yeah.
I think it's like he's it's kind of like a bit of a I won kind of vibe. Like I'm the one that's like still involved in this kind of a thing. I still have that relationship.
Maybe I never thought of it like that, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting actually as a take on it. The other thing it does visually is it sets us up for later on, so we can recognize the place. Which is also which is handy visual foreshadowing. But yeah, from a plot point of view, it's definitely a character point in regards to Paul.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Anything else on this one?
No,
I think that's it, really. Okay, so this was minute 39 of the Grosse Pointe Blank podcast, Debi Radio 79.5 FM, featuring your co-hosts, co-writers, and co-producers, myself, Hugh David, and Dev Soliger.
Today's guest, as he has been all of this week, is David Brook. David, where can we find out more about you and what you're doing? And
you can find out more about me at blueprintreview.co.uk. And follow us at Facebook and Twitter, X, whatever. And check us out on there.
Fantastic. You can find us on all good podcast players, as well as on YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Spotify. And for all of those things, we are at Debi Radio. That's DEBI Radio. And you can find us also on our website, debiradio.com. Again, DEBI.
And finally, if you want to talk to us, come and join the Facebook listeners group, Debi Radio 79.5 FM Fan Club. Once again, DEBI Radio.
Sure was clear that all of this was new. Concentrating hard like a little girl, smoking for the first time. It wasn't a moment, it was a feeling of mood.